Hello, heretics and heathens. Welcome to Veritas Voices. This is Lilith. I'm here with Renee, also known as Renevelations on Twitter. And we are here to bring you another Tweets from Batshit Believers. This was, honestly, we're speeding it up in our rotation a little bit because, the crazy. There's just so much crazy. Honestly, we could probably do a show every week based on the crazy that believers tweet. But I would like to keep my sanity, so we're gonna not quite do it quite that frequently. I don't know how you feel about it, Renee, but that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I would also rather like to stay sane. And the tweets that we're about to discuss, they are a bit of a threat to that. So we need to tread carefully.
Yes. Everybody get a strong drink, caffeinated or alcoholic, depending on your preference and time zone at the moment of listening, and get your face protecting oven gloves. Possibly put something soft on the table in front of you, lest you be tempted to bash your head through the table. That is not good for your head. Let's just not do that. But you drew the short straw, so you get to start reading tweets, Renee. Haha.
The first tweet is from a guy named Rudy Cheddar. I don't know.
Cerda.
Yeah,
I'm almost certain.
And he had the following to say. It's a quote by John MacArthur. And he said, "The Bible is the most offensive book ever written. It damns the whole human race. No one escapes." Yeah.
You know, the weird thing about this is not what it says, but the fact that, I repeat, this is very important to understand what I'm saying. Christians think this is a good thing.
Yeah. Like, yay, an offensive book.
Yeah, it damns the whole human race. I'm not one to care much about offense in and of itself. A thing is offensive, in my opinion, based on, whether or not it actually represents harmful ideas. But this is something I would remember being taught to be proud of how offensive the gospel was. This was somehow a sign of it being true because it was challenging people, because it was offensive, as if that was, that making people upset was a sign of it being true. But that's really the attitude that's given. And I mean, this is a quote from John MacArthur, not Rudy himself. And you can see down below, confessing 1689 says, "Except by grace alone." This is the idea that we are all worthless dirtbag scum who deserve to burn in hell for all eternity for hurting God's precious feelings. But he'll save us by grace because he's just such a great guy.
And this is sort of the Christian cognitive dissonance again coming in, where on one hand we are super precious and we're super great, and therefore we need to treat each other with respect. We need to be friendly with each other. Every human has dignity, which is something I agree with, and therefore abortion is wrong. But at the same time, we are not worth shit in comparison to God, and basically he can do whatever he wants with us, and we should be grateful that he pays us any attention at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Christianity in a nutshell. And honestly, I'd rather not have his attention. If the monster existed, he's a fucking creep. But yeah, I need to remind people, because people who didn't grow up in Christianity, they don't realize this is a Christian bragging. This is not a confession in their mind, even though we can see it and say, see, the logical conclusion of even theologians is that you're super fucked up. But they are bragging. That's their idea of a good thing.
They sort of take pride in it, that they are basically...
they absolutely take pride in it.
That they are basically fighting against the world, and that they spread the message in the name of God that nobody wants to hear, but they are the Christian warriors, they put on the armor of God and they go out there and try to save those souls.
Well, they're so close to self-awareness. It's like there's a famous quote from R.C. Sproul, who's a theological giant in many cases, and he says the supreme irony of Christianity is that we are saved both by God and from God. And I'm like, hello, hey.
Like when I hear this quote, then I'm just thinking, well, you're almost there.
I know, yes. And it's fucked up and wrong and stupid and evil, and stop it. But they can't make that jump. You have to glory in the fuck-upedness, if you want to call that, of Christianity. That's the good part. Because I don't... It's well, I won't call it logic. It's sort of a certain kind of reasoning-ish. But it also is based on a lot of self-deceit, as the next tweet shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure where they're from. Christianity is the mother of the Western education system. Without it, atheist astronomy science would not have been possible to come to existence. Now, not only is this false, but what the fuck, dude? No! Christianity kicked and screamed and dug its heels on all of that stuff, and all of it existed before Christianity. Excuse you, ancient Greeks.
Yeah. I think as far as Christianity being sort of a pathway to science and sort of an enabler for our great discoveries and the great scientists that we have, I think Galileo would object to that a little bit.
You'd think. Oh, honestly, I don't know where they get off. No. Christianity burned a lot of scientists. And yes, okay, the modern scientific method and the specific restrictions placed around what we currently accept as theories and all of these things are fairly recent. But the idea of investigation, which is doubt, that actually, the initial sort of seed of the modern scientific method came from a Muslim during the Islamic Golden Age, saying to basically doubt everything, and this was the way to discover truth, which is true. So not only is it not sourced in Christianity, it's sourced in everything Christianity has ever hated. I mean, we had to wait 1,700 years for Sir Isaac Newton to go up in his attic and invent calculus because he needed it for something. Man was a genius, but a little bit nuts. And we would have had it in the first century already if the church had not scrubbed the works of Sophocles. We only found it because we found special ways with like lighting to read on old parchments and scrolls that they had scraped clean to, mass publish a bunch of hymns and Christian propaganda and shit. Like literally. And Christianity is the blight of science, and any study from anything close to a free and reasoned perspective will come to that conclusion.
And I would like to add two things. One thing about the Islamic Golden Age. Really, the Islamic Golden Age, it was sort of the first advances that we made in medicine, the first advances that we made in human anatomy and in hospitals and that sort of stuff. But have you asked yourself when the Islamic Golden Age stopped and why it stopped?
Because Islam got more serious about being Islamic.
Yeah.
Islam is not a virtue with science either. There were great thinkers in Islam, and Islam tolerated a little while, and then they started thinking too much, and it smushed them.
But sort of the leaders within that time, within that location, they put a stop to it because they felt like what they were doing, the scientists, it was threatening to their faith. So they
it probably was, especially as particularly small-minded and literal faith.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And
but the next tweet we have is, sorry, go ahead.
And another thing which I would like to add is, even though science wasn't technically a thing in ancient Greece, we still made scientific advances even then. The first people who figured out that the earth is not flat, and yes, they did figure that out. That's not a debate, flat earthers, was, I think, 600 years before Jesus ever arrived.
Oh, yeah. Far more than that. They had tracked the movements of the stars and the planets. I mean, Ptolemy, before they figured out that the Ptolemy actually found a way to work with the, epicycles. He came up with the concept of epicycles to try and explain the retrograde motion of the planets, because they still thought that everything revolved around the Earth. But again, it took up 13 volumes of mathematics. It did work. It was very complicated because obviously they were still working on a geocentric model, but being so early in tackling the problem, he can be forgiven for making that mistake. But that type of thing where they're charting the planets and predicting their patterns, that they were already doing that shit. Yeah, okay, they didn't have an electron microscope, but they were making advances that we would already be 1,000 years ahead in technology at least if it hadn't been for Christianity fucking up knowledge.
Yeah.
It's just disgusting.
I would say that while the vast majority of scientists that have ever lived were Christians, I don't think that they made advances because of Christianity. They made advances in spite of it.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes they were withheld because their particular idea was just that it was something else, that it wasn't, this can't be the case because the Bible says X, and then they came up with all these convoluted justifications. Lots and lots of times that has happened, where people who were right on the verge of making a discovery, but they couldn't admit the consequences of what they had learned. So they had to try and find a way around them for what they already believed to be true. And that's why we've had to clarify the scientific method. And it's just, I'm sorry, it's just depressing. And there's a lot of self-deceit in this, and it bothers me because there's an entire narrative created that has nothing to do with actual history or reality. And it happens in science, it happens in history especially, actually, because one fellow tweeted back on your tweet, because of course you were pointing out that Hitler was a Christian, because, he constantly called himself a Christian and referred to Christianity and God to justify everything he was doing and hype people up.
So for the record, what I was doing there within that screenshot, somebody claimed that Hitler was an atheist, and I was asking, simply give me a quote of Hitler saying that he didn't believe in God, and if you don't have that evidence, please retract your statement because that's a lie. And then a fellow named Michael Wilson, he follows me on Twitter, had the following to say: here's the evidence that he, meaning Hitler, didn't believe in God. He murdered 6 million Jews. Only an atheist could do that.
Oh, I've dealt with Michael before. He has his head so far up his ass, I'm surprised he can breathe.
If it's ignorance or dishonesty, but I'm leaning towards both.
At this point, to be that ignorant, you have to be dishonest, because you have to be unwilling to just cross-reference. I mean, heck, Mein Kampf, any translation of it in the public domain in English, search Lord or God or the Almighty and see what you come up with. And never mind his speeches where he was constantly, saying all kinds of things. Oh, God, I even took a screenshot from Mein Kampf because, people were not going to believe me if I said No, he totally just said he was doing it because of God. And of course, they would lose their mind if they realized how close to Hitler they were, because in Mein Kampf, he actually says, if the Jew, with the help of his Marxian creed, because he hated Marxists too, conquers the nations of this world, till crown will be the funeral wreath of the human race, blah, 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 blah. And then says, thus did I now believe that I must act in the sense of the Almighty Creator by defending myself against the Jews. I am fighting for the Lord's work. That's what he said, the Lord's work.
And I'm very glad that you also took these screenshots, because in that case, you have something that both Michael as well as the person whom I quote-tweeted severely lack, and that is honesty. Because
I welcome them to look that phrase up in the actual Mein Kampf. It's, it's in the public domain in many places. You can find PDFs online. It's a horrible, hateful book, but it's also important to understand how these kinds of ideas can grow and be justified to people. If more people studied that, I don't think the world politics would be in the place that it is now.
One thing which I want to say about Michael, because I've had my experiences with him, I talked to him many times, and one of the things that bothers me even more about other than him blatantly lying to me, is that he's also blatantly lying to himself. And yesterday, I think on Twitter, I posted a tweet along the lines of, there's no shame in you being lied to, but there's shame in you allowing yourself to be lied to, because
when you have the option to know better.
There's sort of the quote, which I think you're familiar with: "Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me." And at this point, he realized that he's lying to himself, and by lying to us and by making up these ridiculous assertions that he knows are false and that he knows can't be true, and also assertions as far as Christian apologetics goes, which he knows don't hold up, and claims about us that we know that God exists, which he knows are complete bullshit, but he's lying to himself, and therefore I have nothing but pity for him. Shame on him, basically.
Shame on him. Now I have disgust more than pity. But the idea that, well, for one, he literally claims only an atheist could do that, which, I mean, is false, even if you were going to say a Christian couldn't do that. Like, you might include other groups like Muslims or what have you as being able to do hateful things. But no, it's an atheist. They want to other us completely, to dehumanize us. And the irony is, the irony is that one of the great Christian reformers from Germany, Martin Luther, he literally wrote a book called The Jews and Their Lies. I'll have a quote from it. "Therefore know, my dear Christian, that next to the devil you have no more bitter, more poisonous, more vehement an enemy than the real Jew." I mean, that kind of attitude in Germany for how many generations? And then Hitler comes along and says, "I'm going to smite the Jews in the name of the Lord." You really think that was a hard sell?
No, he was sort of spreading his ideas about killing the Jews and about murdering them, even though he didn't explicitly spell it out. He did plant that on ground that was going to be fruitful. He didn't sort of introduce revolutionary ideas that the Jews are wicked and that sort of stuff. No, that has been deeply ingrained within Europe and within Germany for centuries prior to that.
Absolutely. Well, and prior to Luther, it was the Catholic Church with the pogroms, and like it's a long history. I'm not going to pretend Luther came out of left field with that either.
One thing which I want to say about Michael, because I know where you're going with Martin Luther, is simply that, as far as I'm concerned, he's being not only dishonest to us, he's being dishonest to himself. And I have nothing but pity for him, and that is really what pissed me off the most, is that I knew at that point he is lying, he knows he's lying, and there's nothing you can do to help such a person.
Not much, truly. It's infuriating. But actually, ironically, the Christian defenders also wanted to quote Martin Luther. Christian defenders, for those of you who have been followers of the Batshit Believers and prior to that Crazy Christian Tweet series, will know they're a special Twitter account. They have said some remarkably dumb things about science, but they've also occasionally given us lovely, lovely quotes like this. This one actually being from Martin Luther. And if you are not well versed in Christian theology, he's kind of one of the icons of it. So let's hear what he has to say about the faith. So when the devil throws your sins in your face and declares that you deserve death and hell, tell him this: I admit that I deserve death and hell. What of it? For I know one who suffered and made satisfaction on my behalf. His name is Jesus Christ, Son of God. Martin Luther. And like previously, all the human race is damned.
Yeah. And apparently we all deserve to be tortured. Like,
of course.
Just imagine myself going into the street and coming across a woman random in the street and telling her, hey, listen, you and your little son that you have there, you deserve to be eaten up by dogs, and you deserve to die savagely. She would call the police on me, but when it comes to God and when it comes to spreading a message that is not too different from the one that I just said, then it's okay.
It's interesting. If you tell someone they deserve torture and death in this world, you can be reported for making threats, which I don't object to.
You should be reported.
You should be reported. That's a threat. Threats are not okay. They are a form of violence. But if you threaten infinitely worse and tell a person that they deserve infinitely worse, infinite torture, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And they literally think, they are taught to think that that is an okay thing to believe and not remotely dehumanizing, as long as you think that Jesus saved you. So you have your get out of hell free card by just saying Jesus. And then that's it. That's all you need to do.
Yeah. And we've been over this, and this is, again, what I also mentioned earlier, this is a Christian doublethink where we say, on one hand, we are made in the image of God, we are special, we have dignity, and therefore we should treat each other with respect, we shouldn't murder each other, we shouldn't hurt each other, which, aside from all the crazy God and Jesus stuff, I agree with, based on my views on the law and based on my studies and based on me being a fucking human. But on the other hand, they then also go so far as to say, well, that's just as far as we go, but when it comes to God, then we are dirt on his fingers and he can do whatever he wants with us. Even though we're conscious entities and we have feelings, we have emotions, we can feel pain, and we have this dignity, but that is all forgotten when it comes to God.
Yeah, a lot of Christians will pretend you can't have human dignity without God. I've seen the kind of human dignity that is afforded by belief in God, and I can do better.
Yeah.
And frankly, I deserve better. That's fucking creepy.
As far as the law goes, and as far as human dignity goes, there are various theories within law which would account for human dignity, one of which would be the sort of spiritual God theory introduced by conservatives, but another idea is simply we have feelings, we have emotions, we are intelligent human beings, we can communicate.
We're capable of pain and capable of telling you what would hurt us, so don't do that.
And we have a contract and within society, and we keep to that contract, and a part of that contract is that we don't treat each other as objects, but as conscious, normal, feeling entities. But Christians, of course, can't accept that because pretty much, and I don't think if I've said it before in these exact terms, but arguing about morality and about human dignity with Christians pretty much like talking about color with a blind person.
You know, it really is. And it's a horrible, horrible idea. But this is why we criticize these ideas, because you've got underneath actual people who are capable sometimes of actual decent behavior. And instead, they're taught to dehumanize themselves and dehumanize others, and especially to dehumanize us as atheists. You don't want atheists to be angry. Maybe don't treat us as less than human.
So one fun thing which I would like to say about that tweet, and then we can move on to the next bit of craziness, is simply don't tell me that you deserve to be tortured or that I or anyone else deserves to be tortured. Don't tell me that I should be burned or waterboarded or in any other way crippled. If you want to believe that about yourself, believe that about yourself, but don't tell me that me, you, or any other human being is intrinsically worthy of physical punishment in excruciating ways that would make us or anyone else who would execute it, including God, seem utterly barbaric and would simply objectify us and take away everything that we as humans stand for and that we have built.
It's true. But I think the fact that we actually understand and exist with human dignity may be one of the reasons that they try and push Christians so far away from listening to us, as evidenced in the next tweet. Another unique bit of dehumanization.
Yeah. The next one is from Trevor Sheets or Trevor Sheps. Let's go with Trevor Sheets. He said the following, according to Psalm 1, if you, number 1, refuse to be close friends with non-Christians, wicked people, 2, delight in God's word daily, then 1, God will bless you, 2, you'll prosper in everything you do, 3, you'll know God intimately. This day, be wise and choose to walk with God. Notice the way that what he said there implicitly within his number 1 of if you refuse to be close friends with Christians / with non-Christians / wicked people.
Yeah.
Meaning they can basically be used interchangeably. If you're not a Christian, you're wicked.
You know, I have to wonder if that's why a lot of Christians are protesting against Bill Gates, pretending that he wants to put microchips in them or some weird shit like that because he's funding research into a coronavirus vaccine. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you people? I mean, he's not a Christian. As far as I know, he doesn't believe in any gods, but he's using his ridiculous quantities of money to try and find ways to make us all not so dead. Yeah. I don't have a problem with this. I am not mad at him for being like, oh, I has all the money. Let's work on stopping a global pandemic. Those are generally bad.
Yeah, but see, on one hand, and this is also something that I've read this morning, it's not up to us really to save lives or to decide over life and death. That's God's job.
Well, so, God fucking sucks at it, and he's not going to do shit about cancer, and he certainly hasn't done anything about COVID. Actually, it's funny. Every major outbreak of COVID in the US was linked to a religious service, whether a church or mosque or temple. It's always the religious get together and spread the virus like fucking popcorn.
Yeah. But apparently that cannot possibly be a sign that Christianity is false.
Of course not. And the fact that they do know better than any other religion is also not a sign that they're all equally.
Yeah.
What is it? How did Christopher Hitchens put it? Glimpses of the same untruth.
Yeah. But I think you're aware of the sort of tweets where people say, well, there was a car crash and the car totally burned down, or a house was totally destroyed by a tornado, but guess which object was unharmed? The Bible.
Right.
Christianity is true, but they are willing to make that difference, but they're not willing to make the inference that church services leading to COVID rising and to more people dying means that Christianity is not true.
Of course not. Well, apparently God cares more about objects than people. Maybe he is a Republican. Oh, God.
And something that we've already mentioned before, and you notice sort of a theme within Christianity and within the tweets that we're reading to you is, again, it's this us versus them mentality. You're with me or you're against me, you're either Christian or you're wicked.
Right. And the inability to recognize, and there are some Christians, and very often they're the ones that end up being atheists by the end, who are willing to look into other people and judge them based on their actual behavior. I'm not saying all non-Christians are good people. Of course not. There are some terrible bastards in the world of all stripes. But let's not pretend that Christians are inherently virtuous either. Quite frankly, I'm not saying they're the worst group in existence, but they've got a pretty good selection of terrible, terrible human beings that can trace their actions and behaviors to their faith.
Yeah, and you're completely right about that. Not all non-Christians are good people. I mean, I've encountered on Twitter atheists who are misogynists. I've encountered on Twitter atheists who are anti-gay. I've encountered on Twitter atheists who are transphobes, and you gotta call it bad behavior, and you gotta cut ties with people who hold these views, and you gotta see things as they are, and you cannot put up with atheists or Christians or whatever, even if they belong in your group of people, even if they are possibly your friends. You cannot defend that sort of behavior. You need to call it out, and you need to be outspoken and that sort of stuff. But Christians, I think, don't necessarily do that. Not within their own group, and they...
Well, I won't say none of them do, but far, far too few of them are willing to stand up and pull in the terrible sections of their own group. You know, if moderate Christians who are also, oh, that's not real Christianity, blah, 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 were more willing to like take that excuse-making energy and use it to shut down the fundy lunatics, I would have less of a problem with them. But no, they're busy lecturing me on how I don't really understand Christianity, which is pretty rich considering my bookshelf, but go ahead. In any event, speaking of terrible non-Christians, here we have a Muslim.
I want to say maybe one fun thing about these Christians that don't necessarily call out the behavior that they should. I mean, if we look back at the tweet from Michael, or if we look back at tweets from SJ, I do wonder how many Christians see this and make excuses like he didn't mean it that way, or he's just talking nonsense, or he's just trolling. I think that they're inconsistent. Many of them are inconsistent when they see the stuff within their own group.
Fair enough. Christians, clean your own house before you make excuses to us. In any event, as I was saying, we have another tremendously toxic tweet from a batshit Muslim believer. I hope he's batshit, because if this is obviously taking place in a broader context of a discussion about Muhammad and his infamous wife Aisha, who he married at 6, but waited until 9 to rape, because I'm not going to call sex with a child anything other than that. And one of the excuses Muslim clerics have made for this is basically that they just have to endure physical sex. So, you know, whenever they're physically ready for that. This particular person says, precocious puberty exists. Not everyone is an adult by 9, but it is certainly possible. It is not about sickness. You atheists boast about how your values are based in science and rationality. Now I'm speaking in your tongue. Should this Ali al-Mutasabir ever hear this, go fuck yourself, you despicable rapist bastard.
Yeah.
Now, let's be quite clear. Puberty is a process. It's not a single destination. It's the process of turning from a child into an adult. The issue with having sex with children is not just their physical capacity. Yes, physical aspects of puberty will pop up at different ages, and it's not all just one simple linear thing. What there isn't is mental and emotional maturity. Certainly not at fucking 9. I don't care how hyperactive their physical puberty has been. No child is in a condition to have sex without being psychologically damaged at 9 years old. None ever.
Especially not if the first sexual partner that you have in your life would be a person who's in his 50s, as Muhammad was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I'm not talking about kids playing doctor because they don't understand their bits and they're trying to figure them out. That's a world away. And if this is a case of precocious puberty, or if it were, which there's no indication it was, a child whose physical puberty speeds up, not only is their mental and emotional, not necessarily definitely not keeping pace at 9, but also if they've started having a period, they're at risk of pregnancy. In what universe is a 9-year-old's body ready to carry a baby to term safely?
I don't think I do know that, or I've heard that the earliest pregnancy that has ever occurred was between an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I don't know if that girl survived, but in general, it's a huge risk to her health. And
a massive risk. I'm not saying she necessarily 100% will die. It might barely make it, but it's not healthy. It's not anywhere near healthy.
Yeah,
it's a huge risk for a completely mature adult woman in good physical shape. You could still die. A child who is just barely getting their puberty bits together.
Yeah.
But this is another case where, and I will actually say, I think Muslims might be worse on this one, where they're willing to do so much mental gymnastics to justify someone from their own group, particularly Muhammad, because of course he's the great divine prophet because reasons. And stuff like this. I have heard Muslim apologists say that the text has been misread and he didn't have sex with her till she was 19, which frankly, I don't think the text has been misread, but I'm not an expert in those things. And if they want to push that interpretation, that will probably make the world a much better place. But if it weren't, if people truly believe that he had sex with a 9-year-old, they're willing to justify that by any terms necessary.
Yeah. What I would also say is basically what Jesus is to Christianity is what Muhammad is to Islam. And as far as I'm concerned, let's say that she was 19. Even then, it would still stand that Muhammad was 54 years old at that time. And I think
it would not be as bad, but it's still gross.
As bad, but it would still be bad enough. And as far as I'm concerned, I get it. You do have your saviors, you do have your admired prophets of your religion, but don't make those excuses. Jesus drawn pigs. Jesus said all kinds of horrible stuff. Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old or with a 19-year-old at a point of time where she was clearly not emotionally ready for any of it. And what do you actually have to lose by calling out the bad behavior of your prophet? Or
well, they have their idea of moral superiority to lose, and well, depending on where they're living and how angry people get at the criticisms, they could lose a great deal more personally. But the truth of the matter is it's an example here of the principle of the fact that people are willing to go to all kinds of extremes psychologically to protect what they've identified with and to justify horrible, horrible, horrible things, not just in that individual's case, which would be bad enough, but to the point where it is legal to marry 9-year-olds in Muslim countries because of the Prophet.
Yeah.
Where children are still and currently suffering. Whatever Aisha went through is in the past. What children are going through now is not, and this is making the world a worse place.
One thing which I want to say is basically they want to protect what they cherish, and if their sort of savior, their sort of
they want to protect the concept, and humans can fall by the wayside.
But I do want to ask you this, because among us two, you are the former Christian. Let's say that you, as a Christian, would have to conclude that Jesus drowning those pigs wasn't actually all that cool, and that was an immoral action. What would that have done to your faith, hypothetically, if you could sort of put on the Christian hat for a minute?
You see, this is the thing. Stories like this, they had somehow phrased that as compassion towards the demons by sending them into the pigs as opposed to straight to hell. Because apparently just telling them to fuck off entirely wasn't an option. I don't know. But he gave them a last request, as it were. And honestly, a lot of times I would just try not to think about things like that because it wasn't comfortable. It was very uncomfortable to see the amount of suffering in those stories. Yeah. There was a lot of avoidance, and I don't know, I'm trying to figure it out. Or you try and find a way for it to not be so terrible as it obviously is. Yeah. But at least I wasn't saying, well, that's fine, we can all drown pigs, because Jesus obviously hated pigs. But this next one you found is similar in more of a blaming women sense. But I wanted to know, this person, I was not able to find their account. They seem to have been deleted, lost their account, possibly for something terrible like this. But I don't know if they're a Christian or a Muslim. Wild Cajun man, which is also Wild Cajun girl, depending on the name or the account.
Yeah. I don't know if what exactly is. I would probably think it's a Christian, because if you look at the profile picture, it looks a lot like a cross. But yeah, he had the following to say. Well, the point is that if she gets raped, then she needs to bear some responsibility for it. That is the point. I'm not saying it's totally her fault, but does she play a role in it?
She does play a role in it.
Yeah.
Okay, someone might be tempted to say that we don't know the context of this. I'm going to go ahead and say I don't give a fuck what the context is. This person is scum.
Yeah.
It is never someone's fault if they are raped. I don't care if I strip buck naked and do cartwheels down the street. That does not give any man a right to touch me sexually.
Yeah. That is very true. And I don't get these people.
Well, because they don't want full responsibility for their actions to go on them. There's been a long history of blaming women for men's actions and even men's thoughts. Purity culture. I mean, granted, not as bad as Muslims with the hijabs and the burqas and all of that, but it's pretty bad. The amount of just endless worrying and anxiety about modesty and whether you would cause a brother to stumble, as they put it. It's awful.
Yeah. Like, if you stumble, then it's your fault for stumbling, and if you can't keep it in your pants, then you have no place in a civilized society.
Yeah. Men, your behavior is your responsibility. It is not my responsibility. Doesn't matter what I do or say. Nothing you do is my responsibility ever. Just so we're clear.
We're all responsible for our own actions, and we are all held accountable for our actions, and yeah. And if you rape someone, then you're a piece of shit and you are without excuse.
Damn straight. I think that's the only use of the phrase without excuse that I like. Sorry, it's often used Christian fake apologetic for how we're all going to hell and we have no excuse because we knew Christianity was true because reasons. Apparently, we're supposed to feel it in our heart, which I don't, but they won't believe me when I say that because, reasons.
Because one says otherwise.
Their pastor told them the Bible says something different, or possibly Cy Ten Bruggencate did. Creepy motherfucker. But I think at this point, because this is really infuriating stuff, I think for me, for you, frankly, for anybody who's a remotely decent human being, which I am under the impression that our listeners are. As far as I can tell, they're wonderful people. Yeah. So I think we need, I think we need a laugh. I think we need something funny, because otherwise I may just bash my head through the table.
And we definitely don't want that.
Yes. All right. Put on your oven gloves, because we have found some, oh, good Lord. Okay. This fellow, Ian, he's a clever one. He appears to take issue with someone's lauding of science, because it gave us iPhones. So, okay. His response is, can your science explain why it rains? No, only God commands it.
I've actually
I'm sorry, I can't even. This isn't even how the DNA, how it rains.
Yeah.
Someone failed the 4th grade.
I've actually replied to that person with a quote tweet, and can you guess how long it took me to find a video which explains exactly how it rains and how science does explain it? Do you know how long it took me?
Between 10 to 30 seconds, depending on your speed of typing and internet connection.
About a minute, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. See, there's just tabs and whatever else you were doing.
Like
pretty much
I also wanted to make sure that it's the right video. So
Right, of course. Well, to find the video as opposed to verify it, because you need to. Oh God. Right before I lost my faith, there was this hymn. It was a new hymn, but I call it a hymn because it wasn't a praise and worship sound. It was hymn style hymn that came into my church, and I just couldn't stand it because it literally said shit like this. Who, fills the, who knows where the snow is held and who commands this and that. And I'm like, what the hell is this? If this was like 1780 and you were being poetic, fine, but come on. And this artist was quoting Job.
Did this hymn have the title "God Did It" by any chance?
No. I think it was some attempt at poeticness.
Actually, that would sort of be kind of fun to look up on YouTube, whether there's a God Did It song.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, this is an even how the DNA. No.
Actually, that would sort of be kind of fun to look up on YouTube, whether there's a God Did It song.
No. 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 God did it. Oh my God. I mean, fucking, they knew this. They understood. There was a Sophocles play about Socrates and some superstitious farmer going, well, Zeus must send the rain. Well, actually, no, here's the hydrologic cycle. Well, what about this and that? And, he's like, no, we know that. And, or this doesn't really make sense here and whatever. It's like, excuse you, the rain. Third grade, people. Third grade.
Yeah.
And apparently, no. Was he joking?
I hope he was, but really of all examples that you could possibly choose, like, there are arguments for a god that have at least some thrust to it if you don't look into it further, like the cosmological argument, like with first mover, or the fine-tuning argument. I would have no problem if someone were to at least in the beginning buy into that, and then you can have an argument with that person and tell them exactly why that argument does work. But rain, come on now, you can do better.
But the sky go drip drip. I no understand. Right, and God commands it because the raindrops are in official formation, waiting for orders. Now, does he command them directly, or do we have like angels giving out the orders? You, first squadron, you will attack on the southern flank of the city. We will come in waves going north. Line up, you, faster, heavier drops. You will come in behind after the first assault has paved the way. And, what?
Actually,
they're like tiny little angel fairies riding imaginary horses.
Like, actually, there's biblical precedent for God or Jesus commanding water to obey. Like when Jesus turns water into wine, when God commanded the waves or the Red Sea to open up so that Moses and the Israelites can go through the sea. At least it's a biblical argument. It's just
drop on my command. Oh, it's a funny version of the universe some people live in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay. There's just one more, and we just have to. It's actually from Facebook. Someone was kind enough to share it on Twitter, but we just have to.
We don't know the name of the person. It's sort of anonymous, but this person said the following: atheists get paid by secret authorities to discredit religions. It's disgusting. This is a shame. Shame on yourselves. Most atheists are rich. Guys and girls, wait on paycheck. I
am owed so much back pay. How much am I supposed to be getting paid? I had no idea you could get paid for this shit.
I've been on Twitter for more than 3 years, and I haven't seen a penny. Apparently, they're screwing me all over.
Oh my gosh! How could they? Well, it's just because atheists have no morals because reasons. Oh my God! Woo-hoo! All right, that's it. We're gonna go. Okay, go. Who's paying us? This is who I want to know. Who is paying us? I mean, Bill Gates is busy putting money into COVID research. Is this why he hasn't paid us? And that doesn't account for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Not cool, man. I want my pay. I am not rich. I am freaking poor, and I want my money.
The satanic Darwin organization of Satan and of evil.
Right. Oh, no, not evil. Evil. Yeah. And yes, I am putting my pinky to my mouth. You kids, it's not just garden variety evil, it's evil. Oh my word. Okay. Someone has got to tell me. Okay, so if any of the atheist cavalcade know who is supposed to be paying us for our evil atheism because reasons, shut up reasons, could you please leave it in the comments below, because I would really love to be paid. I need the money. I really need the money. I cannot tell you how much I do. So, I would just really appreciate it if you could message me privately on Twitter at Phoenix_Lilith. Just my messages are open. Tell me who I'm supposed to talk to about my evil atheist back pay, because damn, I need to get on that. Oh, where would we be without paranoia?
Yeah. Everyone loves a good conspiracy theory.
Can't even help it. Oh, it's so good. So yes, please let us know in the comments below or on Twitter who is paying us for our evil atheisting. And we'll be sure to give you a bonus shout out in our next video. How does that sound?
Sounds good. I mean, yeah. Money, we also, it would certainly not hurt to have a little bit more cash.
Yeah. I would be okay with that. Amazingly, I know, but I really would be. So go evil atheist cabal conspiracy. You got to do what you got to do to stay ahead. Oh my God. Okay. Oh, that was funny. I needed that. I really needed that. I think on that note, we've been at this for a little while, so I think we can probably end there. It's good to end laughing, I think, don't you?
Absolutely. I mean, most of the time we are face palming or are angry over what we read, but yeah, it's nice to end on a funny note.
It certainly is. Thank you very much for tuning in, either to the premiere or whenever you're listening to this. Please follow us on Twitter at Veritas Voices, myself at Phoenix_Lilith, or Renee at Renevelation. Leave any comments, suggestions in the comments below, or shout us out on Twitter if you find some crazy Batshit Believers stuff, because, we are always happy to take suggestions, because, oh my gosh, so much with the crazy. So much. We can't find it all. We need you.
Yeah.
In the meantime, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and reason bless.